Right, afternoon everyone. Nice to see you all here. My name is Jean Wing Hing. It's Jean, not Jean, or Juan, which I get quite a lot. Definitely not Jane, which I have had as well. I'm the director of For Leisure Recruitment. I'd like to introduce you to my colleague Amy Gilmore, who will be supporting me today. Amy's one of the other directors within the business, and she's also the face of the health and fitness side of the business, so she heads all of that sort of stuff up. She's the kind of glamorous face of the business. So we use her.
More glamorous than these guys.
When we want to create a really good impression, we send her out. I get wheeled out when there's kind of quite a serious or raw, challenging topic to talk about, such as how we make recruitment better. Hello. That's all right. Come in. You've not missed anything important at all. Just the introductions. So today we're here to talk about the challenges with recruitment and how to make it better for everybody and make improvements within your business. Just a little bit of background on us as a business. We founded in 2002, so we are getting on a bit now. We've been around quite a long time, and our aim at the time was to create a business that would support leisure companies in their recruitment in terms of attracting and securing really outstanding talent. Now, we did this mainly in health and fitness, but as the business grew, we started to move into other sectors like spa and beauty, active entertainment, hospitality and catering. We do some exec recruitment. So loads of different stuff, and we come up with a kind of bespoke solutions for all of those areas. The other thing that we do a lot of is temp recruitment. So we are the only specialist provider of leisure temporary workforce for all of those sectors as well. So we do quite a lot of stuff, and really the key for us is to understand our market, and really to understand our market, we need to do that on several different levels. Let me just make sure that's going to work. The success that we have in recruitment, particularly in this sector, is being able to follow a certain set of rules. Now, that's difficult because I'm sitting in a room with entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs never like to follow the rules, but I'm going to ask you to try and follow the rules and you'll have really great success with your recruitment. Sorry, the clicker's not working on this, so I've got to do it manually. Okay, so the first thing we really want to address here is why we're not inundated with CVs. We get contacted quite a lot from leisure businesses who are really struggling with their recruitment, and they're not quite sure why. They say, okay, we've created an advert, we've stuck it out online, we think it's brilliant, but we're not getting any traction at all. Now, why is that? Well, it's a challenging market at the moment, and there's loads of different reasons as to why the volume of CVs isn't coming in. Permanent recruitment is relatively flat at the moment. When you talk to recruiters, they talk about recruitment being cyclical. It's a candidates market, so there are candidates, there's loads and loads of jobs, but not enough candidates out there, which means candidates have got loads of choice over where they want to go and work. Now, because it's cyclical, that will change at a certain point, and there will be lots and lots of candidates out there and not many jobs, and that's great. But there seems to be a fundamental change at the moment. We've talked about it before being cyclical, and these things come around. If you wait long enough, that market will shift and we'll start to get some traction, but sometimes, like now, it's not likely to happen. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago where we were sat with a bunch of analysts for the recruitment industry, nothing leisure related, but just generally looking at recruitment. And they looked at the trends that were happening both globally and nationally and why things weren't working. And the big thing at the moment is understanding that there's possibly a fundamental change in why recruitment is going to be like this for quite some time. The first thing is the end of low interest rates. Now, low interest rates mean that headcount tends to freeze. People start to shrink their businesses. The other thing is, when there is growth in the market, GDP above 2.5%, job growth tends to boom. That's not happening at the moment. We're a long, long way off of that. So that's a really key point. People are concerned about AI. Whether it's got an impact in this industry yet remains to be seen. But people have some uncertainty about what AI is going to do for this sector. And for business owners, does that mean that we need to hire, or do we need to hold off, or can we get some of this stuff automated? That's a really key point. The election's coming up tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? It's tomorrow. Okay. People don't like to make big moves. when things like this are happening. Everyone likes to batten down the hatches and say, okay, let's not make any big life-changing decisions at the moment. Let's just ride it out and see what happens. Now, we're talking about jobs and we're talking about job growth here. Now, as business owners and as gym managers, why are we talking about jobs? Well, jobs means movement, and recruitment is really just about movement. Any kind of growth in the industry, whether that's jobs or people, is about movement. And if nobody's moving, it's a bit like a buyer's chain. If no one's moving, no one can get on the ladder. So it's really important that people start to move in this industry, otherwise nothing's going to happen. So we've got to look at new ways of working to try and get people to move and make ourselves a bit more attractive as a business. One of the key tools that we use quite a lot is a person spec. Does anyone use person specs here? Do we know what the difference between a person spec and a job description and an advert is? We're pretty clear on that because that's something that we tend to come up against quite a lot. When we take calls from clients or we're in conversation with clients, some of the things that come up quite quickly are, do we have a job description? That's the first question that gets asked. Is there a job description for the role? And the answer we normally get is no. Typically in small businesses, we just kind of we build it around a person, or we don't really have, we've got to get a fair idea of what we want, but we haven't actually got a job description. Okay, that's a bit of a problem. How do we know then exactly what we're looking for? The job description really is just a description of the duties that are required for that particular role. Your person spec is different. Your person spec is what type of person am I looking for? What type of behaviours and what type of skills do I need to deliver the job description? The job description is the result that we want. The person spec is about the type of person we want. And it's not just about qualifications and skills. It's also about alignment. Do the person's values align with our business? And those are some of the key things that we try to assess when we're looking at a person spec. And your advert is just a sales tool. So the combination of the job description and the person specification will give you a good advert. So what about what we actually want? Before we can start doing any of this, we've really got to concern ourselves with actually how clear am I with what I'm actually looking for. It's really difficult in this market where there's a lack of skills. There are certain types of roles at the moment that are particularly difficult to fill because it requires a qualification. But we've got to have a bit of a reversal of our mindset with this. Think about some of the roles that you may recruit for. Think about the fitness instructors, think about the duty manager, the frontline type of roles, and think about how else can I approach this? If I can't find those people, what would happen? It's pretty easy to look at a job description and say, okay, well, if I need a fitness instructor, I just need a fitness instructor. It's got to have a qualification and experience, and that's what it is. So that's what I've got to go out and find. But is that necessarily the case for all the roles that you recruit? So what we ask people to do is think about what's the end result? From the job description, what is the end result that we're looking for here? Take your duty manager example. The end result is I need someone who can open and close and maintain compliance. I need someone who can deal with complaints. Do they need necessarily experience in the health and fitness industry to be able to do that? Well, actually, possibly not. When you think about that end result, that's just a bunch of processes. So can we train people on processes? Well, yeah, actually, it's much easier to train people on processes than it is to train them on behaviours. So actually, what we probably should be looking for is the skills and the behaviours that are required rather than the experience. So can we take someone from a hospitality industry, perhaps? Can we take someone from a Costa Coffee? Is it feasible that we can train them to do those things? All of this needs to evolve. Job descriptions and person specs and adverts have to evolve with the industry and the movement in the market at the moment. If they stay static, it's not going to work for you. Typically, we get job descriptions from 1995 because someone wrote it then and we just use that because that's what it is, and it's really easy just to keep farming that out every time we get a job vacancy. But actually, that's not what we want to do at all. We've got to think about, okay, what does our market look like at the moment? Who am I talking to at the moment? Does the tonality match? Is that the right audience for me? And does what I'm saying reach those people? Are you talking my language? We've really got to decide who our audience is, and by doing that, we then need to look at the tonality. So think about your Gen Z and your millennials. How do they differ in terms of what their aspirations and attitudes are versus when you were recruiting 10 years ago? Are they the same? Do we need to approach them differently? What are the values? What are the things that are most important? Some of the things that come up quite often when we're talking about those generations are benefits, obviously. Everyone's talking about benefits at the moment, but also it's the intrinsic rewards. What are we giving them? And mental health support, how much development are we actually giving them? Those things are really important at the moment. So in order for us to get our message across to them, we've got to create something that's talking the right language to them. So the next time you've got to recruit, these are the things that I'm going to ask you to do. Look at the job description first and foremost and say, is that fit for purpose? Can I still use this in this environment? Does it fit what I'm actually looking for? Will it deliver me the results? Second thing is identify the core skills and behaviours that I need. What's going to get me the result? What type of person do I actually need for this role? And look for transferable skills. Can we take someone from another sector and drop them into this environment and give them some of the processes in order for them to succeed? And then because of all that, we've got to place less emphasis on CVs. Now this is a real battle with all of our clients, because the first thing that anyone wants to do is take a look at a CV and go, I don't like the look of that, or that's too short, that's too long, it doesn't read very well, they've bounced around quite a lot. We're looking at people who are transferring from other sectors. So can we get over the CVs and think, okay, do I see enough here to be able to progress this person? We have a policy in our business that we look to positively screen people. That means we look for people to progress. We can progress them if we can find things that are aligning with our clients. Can we progress this person, rather than let's pick holes in it and see if we can screen this person out and reject them because I don't like the font they've used. So we've got to be quite positive about it and in order to get our results. I'm going to hand you over to Amy.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so we're at the point in the process now that we have our vacancy, we have our job description, and we have our advert, and we know that these things are all different. So moving on to rule 3 is around getting the tech to do the work for you and following the rules here. So first of all, we're looking at our advert and where we're going to put it. So most people would say we put the job ad on Indeed. Would you guys kind of say that's where you post, or other platforms as well? Majority of clients that come to us, we look at the recruitment that they've done so far, bearing in mind if they've come to an agency, it's because they've been unable to fill successfully themselves. And we will see their job on Indeed, which is arguably probably the leading job board at the moment. But looking at the content of the advert itself first, one thing that we would advise is, and it sounds really obvious, that you don't post a job description. And actually I would go as far to say 7 or 8 out of 10 companies are posting a 2-page job description as that advert. And the second thing is the way it's worded, in the sense of actually it can read a bit like a ransom note. Lots of, we need this from you, skills, experience, these qualities, and then a little bit at the end about what it is that the employer could then do for that candidate. So there's a couple of don'ts that we would look at. The advert itself is a sales pitch, and we would advise that you structure it in 2 halves, and the first half is to sell the role, and the second half is to tell them about it. You have about 14 seconds, apparently, to keep a candidate engaged before they click off. And a trainer from Indeed once told us, if you have to scroll more than twice as a candidate to look at an advert, it's too long. He said, your advert's too long, cut it. So as a fitness instructor, a reformer Pilates instructor, a club manager, the types of roles we recruit for in our industry, you would hope that they know the key responsibilities and duties. So that's the tell bit. So what's really important is, why should we apply for this job when we're sat there and potentially have 5 to 10 options? So it's about your company, the benefits, your culture, what you have to offer, followed by the basic logistics, responsibilities. You may be interested to know that a direct application itself actually tends to only account for around 75% of our successfully placed candidates. So it is actually super important that we are looking at also other proactive ways to recruit, and building a campaign with direct engagement, i.e. approaching candidates, is always going to get you more success. So just to reiterate, actually only 25% of our successfully placed candidates come from Indeed as a single platform. We have to find that other 75% from all different platforms. So when we talk about approaching candidates, actually we can look at these job boards, these platforms, Reed, Indeed, LinkedIn, and they are huge CV databases. So if you, like I, have ever put your profile on CV online, it's probably still there. And actually we can find it by using keywords and searching. Now these platforms do cost. They're not free, unfortunately. You can't just search CVs. It does come at a cost, but it does directly impact success. And of course, there are other ways for businesses, more like, you guys in North Wales, and things that actually looking at the local community, your member network, looking at your social media. These are all other ways that you can complement your direct advertising itself. So far, I've really talked about our passive recruitment channel, i.e. servicing inbound applications. And now we're looking more at the proactive side of things. Looking back at the advert itself, though, we have got to look at AI. Now, everyone's talking about AI, and actually what does that mean? Now, to us as recruiters, it's been absolutely golden because we can punch in an overview of an advert and we can put, write me an advert in a certain tone or language, and it will throw out a pretty good advert, quite well worded, quite relevant. The job boards themselves do this, but also so does ChatGPT. Have you guys in the room used ChatGPT? Good, okay. I came back from mat leave and was like, what? What's that? And I've learned, I've accessed it, and I'm like, I'm never ever not having this up as a window on my computer again. So the positive is it can really help get that content together for us. But the negatives that we have to be mindful of is it is written automated for us, automatically. And what we know is job seekers now more than ever, when we talk about millennials and Gen Z and generally the candidate market, they want to understand more about your business, your culture, where you sit, and what your values are. And actually, an AI written advert won't tell a candidate that when they are sat looking online. So my approach to it is use it and then tweak it and make sure you're still getting the touch of your brand in the advert itself. And the other thing on that more techie side to speak about is just knowing the basics of SEO. And I guess in its most simplest form, if you need a membership sales advisor, you wouldn't put an advert up without the word sales in it, because people are coming up with all these funky ways to attract candidates. A fitness guru, a fitness coach, a wellbeing advisor, but actually that's not going to index so well if it is a fitness instructor or PT that you need. So it's also about being mindful in your business around those keywords that you're putting in your advert. So we talked about the advert, and then now we're going to move on to actually targeting the passive candidates. Now, around 70% of the UK's workforce is not job seeking, but that doesn't mean that they're not open to a proposition if they are approached by you or a recruiter. And that is where recruiters will have a lot of success, because our job is to go and uncover talent that isn't necessarily applying. So getting hold of those more dormant, shall we say, job hunters is really important. Ultimately, are you looking to secure kind of the best of who's applied or who is out there in your local area that you could tap up? If you want to be super, super proactive, the last thing on this slide is probably around actually your careers page. Now, we work with a lot of businesses around their careers pages. So if I, for example, knew that you guys were going to be sat in here today, we would review your website online and we would look to locate your jobs if you had any. First thing is, how easily can I locate them when I'm actually really trying to find them? Is it a tiny careers page at the bottom? Where can I find about your jobs? And when you click on it, again, this sounds kind of obvious, is it up to date? Do you have live vacancies on there? Do you have vacancies on there that actually closed off months ago? And do you have your job descriptions listed on there? Because again, even the biggest chains and brands that we work with have often listed their JDs over and over again, not an advert. So what we're urging you to do is look at not just a jobs listing page, but a careers page that tells potential candidates about your brand and why work for you. What do you have to offer in terms of, again, your benefits, your culture, testimonials, success stories. What candidates want to know now is how you can support their health and well-being, support their learning and development, and all these things really should feature as a careers page. What's really critical that you have on there, you've done all this work to build this page up, is a data capture. If somebody's made it this far, they're pretty interested to work for you, whether or not that's because it's come through a website traffic, online, a member, anybody in your local community, but they're pretty keen if they're on here. And even if there's not a live vacancy, you have the function in which they can register for job alerts. Because what you're then doing is being really proactive to talent pool. So should a vacancy come up, you are on the front foot and you have those candidates there at the ready. Again, what's really important about data captures, you guys probably know, is few clicks the better. If they have to do a long-winded registration form, they're probably going to click off. So anything in which you can just get their basic contact details to approach them should you have a vacancy come live. So to summarise this, it's really about getting the tech to do the work for you, especially in the smaller businesses where you don't necessarily have people dedicated to recruitment all day, every day. You can get these things set up and actually hope that then that brings talent in at the ready for you. So we're getting through it now, and this bit is pretty quick, and hopefully you guys will sit here and think, yeah, we absolutely do that, and you may kind of think we do 80% of it. But what I want to run through here is nailing down a process and sticking to it. And I think the most important thing that we see is that actually this isn't pre-agreed before hiring teams going live with a role. So what I mean by that is that the goalpost within a recruitment process seems to constantly move, and that can have a really detrimental effect on time to hire and successfully placing candidates. So first of all, you have your advert live, and if you've paid for an Indeed credit, it may last for 4 weeks, but we would really strongly advise you service applications as they come through within 48 hours, and that you don't wait for 2 weeks or 4 weeks to review your candidates in one hit. The hottest candidates on the market will be off the market within 10 days. So actually, if you do wait 2 or 3 weeks to review in one hit because you've got a slow Friday afternoon, you likely find that your first candidates are no longer interested and you've wasted that credit. So respond in 48 hours. Be prepared as an employer to sell yourself. Again, lots and lots of research is showing that the interview process is really moved towards a two-way conversation. So gone are the days where you can kind of grill a candidate and say, they should rip my arm off for this job. And I've definitely said that in the past. They should really want to work here. But actually, candidates are coming in with their own questions. And I've seen it directly in our office. They're asking us, again, about benefits and they're getting a feel for the culture and the support and the succession planning and what you can offer them. So you have to be prepared to have that really open mentality and be ready to sell yourself. Ultimately, we have jobs that we need to fill. Candidates more than ever are actually rejecting job offers, and the stats are really showing that even if it's not for a more attractive offer, they're simply saying, I don't want to work for you, from the feeling they got through the process. If you like the candidate, hold your second stage within 5 days. Again, don't make them wait. You don't know what else they've got in the pipeline. Stick to a decision around when you're going to feed back to them. If that is before the weekend, please do it before the weekend, because candidates are really sat there waiting to hear, and it's super important to them, and it just starts to flatten the mood a little bit if they have to wait going into the next week. Pay what they want. You know what you advertised. You know by now what your candidates' expectations are. So it's a real shame, certainly for us, and we strongly advise against it, if somebody then tries to save a few pennies and goes in with a bit of a low ball and says, oh, we'll see, we'll review it on probation. Because the candidate's excited, they're engaged, and nothing takes the shine off it more than coming in with a lower salary than what they had in mind through the communication so far. Is the last thing around communicating every step of the way, all the way through their notice period and onboarding. And with onboarding, we're talking about everything through, do they know what time to turn up on the first day, where to park? Is their tech ready? Do they know what to wear? Have you allocated time and resource for their induction? Week 1, week 2, week 3, and then throughout. Because obviously their experience of joining you not only impacts how long you retain them for, but how they will then go and be an ambassador for your business as well, in saying, you should come and work here, which I can only imagine in the areas you guys have told us about. It's really important that they're actually out there promoting for you. And again, we're talking about that really proactive recruiting and talent pooling. But just to summarise, really, by doing these basics, it can make such a big difference to the experience that a candidate has with you. So I hope that bit was helpful. I'm going to hand you back to John just to wrap it up, and then we'll see if you guys have got any questions.
So one of the big things that we really like to focus on is a change of mindset, particularly in the current climate where it's a very candidate-driven market. The mindset of recruiters needs to change so that we're getting a better result. What I want you to think of is it's a date. Think of it as a dating process. This doesn't come comfortably to everyone, but it works. So when we think about the process that we need to go through, we've got to make ourselves attractive. We talked earlier about the things that we are doing around our business to make the job more attractive, make the environment more attractive, and really look at what's on offer. So we've got to dress up before we go to the party, and then we've got to get noticed. And that's the tools that we talked about earlier, the tools to get yourself out there, making sure that people are going to be interested in what we're saying and what we're doing, and then retaining the interest. And actually retaining the interest is kind of difficult. We talked a little bit before about the advertising, that 14 seconds to gain that initial interest. It's really easy to lose them after that unless you're really quite creative. And that's a completely different module that we do on how to get your adverts read, but there's a skill there. If you put time and effort into it and start searching Google and stuff, creating really important, really engaging adverts will have quite a big impact on how many applications you get. We've got to be really enthusiastic. We see quite a lot of candidates come back to us after an interview who were really excited before the interview, and when they come back and you ask them how it was, they go, yeah, it was all right. I didn't get much back from them. Now, that's really frustrating because everyone needs feedback, and from an energy point of view, people will bounce off your energy. So if you're enthusiastic, you'll get the best out of people. If you're flat and serious, people won't really open up. So it's important that we do that. You've got to sell yourself and the business. It's all about selling, okay? In a market where there's not enough candidates, you have to sell. Think about this whole process as a sales process. You're out there pitching for leads, and you've got to retain interest, and then once you've got the interest, you've got to sell to them. That's counterintuitive for a lot of people, because actually when you're interviewing people, you're saying, okay, well, let's see who's good enough. Who's good enough to do my job? And I'll take that person. Well, if they're not interested in the first place, there's no point doing it. You've got no leads. So we've really got to sell that concept to them first of all before we decide who's good enough to do it. Let's look at everyone here. Let's sell them the concept. Be really excited about this opportunity. Be hungry for it. Then we can pick the best one from it. But if no one's interested, you're wasting your time. The conversation has to revolve around them. Yes, we've got to test skills, we've got to test behaviours, we've got to test competencies, and we've got to look at what they can do for us. But the focus through the whole interview process has got to be on them. Part of that selling process is for the candidate to understand what you're going to do for them. Think when we talked about the Gen Z, not Z, and millennials, what are they actually looking for from us? They're looking for development. They want intrinsic rewards, they want development, they want a nice environment, and they want to see themselves moving forward. But they also want to be able to leave work at work and go home and have a nice balance. Now, if we're not providing that for them, then we are going to struggle, because every other business out there is looking at how they can engage those people effectively and provide a working environment where people are going to thrive and stay with them. Micromanagement's over. We don't do that anymore. It's got to be a better environment for them. We've got to then follow that through, and businesses don't. So they talk a really good game and they say, we'll do this for you. It's going to be lovely here. You're going to get development and we're going to train you on this and we're going to do that. And in 18 months' time, you're going to be managing this and it's going to be fantastic. And then they don't do any of that. And that's really frustrating. So P45s will come pretty quickly and people will leave your business if you don't stick to your word. So we would encourage you, don't oversell it and tell them stuff that you can't deliver. But if you're going to tell them stuff, you've got to provide that environment for them to thrive. As well as that, you have to provide them the financial rewards. If you are advertising OTEs, bonuses, the ability to grow their salary, you have to give them those rewards. There is no point in tempting them with those sort of figures if that's unachievable and they're never going to get there, because they will leave immediately. Okay, so we've got to follow through on all those promises that we're making. But what about the rejections? What about the people who don't make it? What about the people who say, do you know what? No, this one's better. We'll take this one. What about the rest? What happens to the rest of them? Do we have any contact with them? What do you do? What do you do when you want to reject people? Do you reject them? Do you email them? Do you call them? What happens? You call?
Yeah, just to give some feedback.
You've got to give feedback.
There may be a specific reason why they didn't. Maybe they're not for the job.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just that there was someone better applied.
Yeah.
So you want to let them know that you were great for the job.
Yep.
But just on this occasion you weren't successful.
Absolutely. And you are absolutely in the minority with that, because actually what most people do is they either give them generic feedback, or they'll send it through the agency or whatever else, and they go, yep, thanks, not for us, and that's it. Or they were not quite experienced enough, or something that's really not very constructive, or they get totally ghosted, like they never existed, which is the most common form of rejection. And that happens all of the time. Now, they may not be right for you right now, and you might not be right for them right now, but actually, is there a scenario where that person might fit with our business? They may not have the experience, they might not have all of the skills, but did they have the right attitude? And did they have the right behaviours? Yeah, there was just someone better this time. You've paid for these applications, so let's try to use them. One of the things that we focus on most of all of our clients is building pipeline, talent pools of people so that they can recruit quickly. Some of the biggest issues that businesses have, particularly when we're talking about operational roles, is they get a vacancy and they can't fill it quick enough. Now, if that's an operational role, you can't open your building, you can't close, you can't supervise your staff. That's a really big issue. So speed is everything. And then we get the panic calls. And they go, can you find us a duty manager really quickly? We'll take whatever you can get. That's not a situation you ever really want to be in, because you always want the best people. And we don't want just people who are available right now, the best of the people, what's available either on an agency's books or on Reed or on Indeed. Whoever's available, we'll take them the best of. What we actually want is the best talent available to us. Now that best talent available includes the passive job seekers that we discussed earlier. What are we doing with those? How are we capturing them? Well, this is the way of capturing them. We've already captured them. They've already shown interest in our business. We have to retain those people. What happens if your first choice drops out? You think you're there. Yeah, we've got this covered. I've got a great candidate. They absolutely love it. And we're offered it to them. Close everything else off, shut it all down. This guy was really keen. Okay, he accepts the role, and then 2 days later he said, do you know what, I've had a better offer. That happens a lot at the moment. By the way, counter offers and rejections happen loads. So what have you done with all the other people that were engaged? Oh, no, we just didn't call them again. Okay, we've just ghosted everybody in our pipeline now. And then you've got to make them a call, and you've got to call that second place candidate and go, oh yeah, you know her, you know that job you interviewed for 2 weeks ago, we'd like to offer it to you now. What? Okay, you've disengaged that person entirely after spending time and money and effort trying to engage them, selling the job to them to make sure they're really excited about it, and all of a sudden, you've got to re-engage them all over again. It's a really hard sell second time around, but we've built the pipeline, so let's keep the pipeline engaged. So we encourage our clients to keep engaging people all the way through the process. Even after you've offered it to another candidate, keep them engaged. Keep conversations going. Look, we think we found someone this time who's got a bit more experience. I really like the behaviours. I really like your enthusiasm. Actually, there may be a spot for you at some point because you actually really fit the values and we'd like to have you on board at some point. I've got nothing for you right now. But do you fit for us? Yeah. Do we fit for you? I think so. That's great. Let's keep in touch. What then happens is when we do get a vacancy, we've got a starting point. Okay? Instead of going to ChatGPT or whatever, building an advert, creating campaigns, going through interview processes. First two calls I'm going to make is the number 2 and 3 candidates that I didn't take last time. Hi, you were really interested last time. We thought you were great. You weren't quite ready. 18 months later, actually, would you consider it now? Yes. A very high proportion of our candidates come through that route. In fact, we've got a client at the moment who we have managed to reduce their time to hire, which is a key metric we look at in health and fitness, from 40-something days to 14 days, okay? The reason we've done that is because we've built a huge talent pool. Every time we've rejected people, we've managed that experience, that employer brand. Bear in mind, that's what we're trying to create here, an employer brand, so that people want to come and work for us, so we don't have to keep going out and grabbing people and trying to attract people. We've actually started to attract our audience now. That's massively important. What's the stat? There's a stat here about how many people reject offers. Where is it? 49%. 49% of rejected offers are due to poor experience. Okay, so that's a lot. That's a hell of a lot. All those people you pay to attract now, they're actually rejecting your offer because actually you just haven't really behaved that well. So we've got to take that mindset and go, look, keep attracting. This doesn't apply to dating. We've gone off that subject altogether. We don't hopefully start building pipeline once we've offered someone. Anyway, forget that. It doesn't really work for that, but it does work for recruitment. Works really well for recruitment. So we've got to say, build your pipeline, and then your time to hire and your recruitment will be much more successful. Okay, so what we've been through so far today is a lot of the basics. A lot of basics that we would say all recruiters should do this. Actually, very few people do all of this stuff. We look at some of the big brands out there we think are really successful in recruitment. You think of some of the aspirational brands that people love to work for. This sector, let's look at Virgin Active. They do really nice adverts. Gymbox looks really funky. Everyone loves that sort of stuff. Do they do all the steps of this process? No. Pipeline, do they have good pipeline? Actually, probably yes. The brand attracts a lot of pipeline. Does everyone have great experiences with all of those brands? Not always. We know because we hear it from the candidates. So we've got to make sure that that's not happening. And where you have a small business in a small community, you want good reputation and people wanting to come and work for you, and your recruitment will be much, much better. Take what you can out of this, implement some of it, implement all of it if you can, that'd be great. But even if you implement just some of these little bits, you'll see massive changes in your recruitment. That's all from us. Thank you very much. Any questions at all? Nothing at all. Anyone having problems with their recruitment at the moment? Anyone struggle? What are the key things you struggle with recruitment?
I think for us, we're in quite a semi-rural area.
Yeah.
So it's just being sheer numbers of.
It's lack of applications.
People,
yeah. Lack of applications is a big issue in rural areas because the skills just aren't there. And sometimes you can't use transferable skills because it's so specific. For things like we discussed, like duty manager, the skills are transferable. If you need someone with a fitness instructor qualification, it's really hard because they're just not there and you've got to attract from further out. But you've also got to be 100% confident that what you've done has covered that market. You're not missing stuff. You've got to be confident you're not missing stuff.
trying to avoid, they used to work there, or they
it's small communities, isn't it?
New blood, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, but also with that sort of stuff, there's relationships with the training providers and those sort of businesses as well who are at the front line feeding people through. And if they're, that's a source of candidates for you. And what are you doing to attract them? Have you got a relationship with them? If you're in a small rural area, if you're talking to a training provider, is anyone coming through in my area? Are there new trainers coming through? Are there instructors qualifying soon? And if so, we'd like to talk to them. In which case, all of this stuff still applies. Are you attractive enough for them to want to talk to you, or is the competition much more attractive to you? Actually, one of the things I meant to mention earlier, and we didn't talk about it, was the competitor analysis, because that's hugely important, as well as making yourself really attractive to the business. What are your competitors doing? How aware are we of the market and what everyone else is doing in the market? Not from a membership point of view, are we competitive on price and facilities? It's none of that. It's, are we competitive as an employer? Because you are competing as an employer with all the other gyms, leisure centres or whatever in your area. So that's really important. And one of the things that comes up quite often for us is they say, well, I think I'm positioned really well because I've looked at the market, I've looked at what's advertised out there, and all the other fitness instructor positions out there are advertised at £12 an hour. So I'm offering £12 an hour, so I think I'm competitive. Well, you're not, because with the market as it is at the moment, we don't know that anyone else is getting any applications, first of all, for those jobs. And secondly, if the going rate is £12 an hour, why is someone going to quit their job and come and work for you? And that's the question to ask yourselves. Most people say, am I competitive? It's not, am I competitive? It's, why is someone going to quit their job? I've got a nice, stable job. Why would I leave that to come and work for you? So, is the salary enough to get me moving? We talked about movement earlier. Everything's about movement. How can we get people to move? Is the salary enough to convince someone? And that's really tough for small businesses because they say, okay, that's what I budgeted for. That's the going rate and that's what I want to pay. But like anything, if you desperately need someone to move, then you pay over the odds to do that. And that's why salaries are accelerating in this industry at the moment, because nobody wants to move. So paying more, but think about all the other stuff we offer to make it attractive. Think about the benefits and development and all that sort of stuff. That's why you should quit your job and come and work for me, because not just the money, but all the stuff I'm going to provide for you, that's really important. So you've got to do your competitor analysis as well. Any other challenges at the moment that people...
People feel entitled. They don't really want to work too much.
Yeah.
We tend to have a lot of the sort of younger or newly qualified, but they don't want to work.
No.
They want to come in, they want to earn big PT bucks, but they don't want to put the work in for it.
Yeah.
They look at the people that have been in our gyms for 3, 4, 5 years that have dropped their hours right down.
Yeah.
And they want to be like that right from the start.
Yeah.
After 3 months of the club manager working closely with them to help promote their business and give them a 12-step plan to pick clients up.
Yeah.
When they haven't got 20 clients, it's not for me.
No. And you know, it's really easy to say it's a generational thing. Everyone says that. Oh, it's a generational thing. Everyone's entitled, and that's just general attitudes at the moment. That doesn't help you. No. It doesn't help you employ anyone. I think the things that we would advise in those situations, and it's difficult to tackle, is setting expectations from the outset. When we do sit down with them, when we're doing our tell piece, we've sold them the idea and we're doing the tell piece, okay, just so you're aware, this is how it needs to work. This is what you'll be expected to do. This is what the expectations would be in terms of what we want you to do, and also what you're going to get back from us as well. That's really important. And at that point, you tend to get people either dropping out or not. But it's difficult to overcome that one, because you can't just change attitudes. You make yourself alluring, but actually when they get there, they've got to want to do the bloody work. So that's really hard, actually. I haven't got a solution for that one, unfortunately. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So if you're finding that you're having a large churn because of the reasons that you've said, if you're not having anything in that pipeline ready to go to, then you're in more trouble.
First thing we ever do is go back to recent applicants.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with GDPR and holding on to data and things like that. But actually, if you are a business that churns a lot, then that pipeline is massively important. And some of our clients churn far too many people. But without that pipeline, it just wouldn't work, because where it's all compliance led, they would have their doors shut half of the time. So we're providing temp staff to them to keep the doors open, but actually the recruitment is quicker, which means that they can keep the doors open, keep it compliant, and keep the business performing more often than if they had to start from scratch every time, which is what typically happens with a lot of businesses.
How do you benchmark the quality of qualifications?
The quality of qualifications.
You know, so if somebody comes to you as a level 2
Mm-hmm.
certificate for, you know, now there are so many different ways of getting a level 2
Yeah.
qualification. How do you know, how do you control that to look for people who are registered or just experience, or?
Yeah, it depends. It's a personal.
Quite hard to figure out where, you know.
I think it's a very personal thing to the business owner as to what looks good to you. Ultimately, in every sector, there's loads of different qualifications you can have to be able to just perform the tasks that qualify you to be able to perform the task. In terms of the quality, you can put them through technical assessments.
Yeah, it's not so much the qualification. What I'm trying to say is, you know, how do you use what they present you with as a qualification as a benchmark for their ability? You know,
we go as long as they've got the bare minimum that we require. We would then get them in for what's the most important thing we need them to do: teach classes. So we get them to come in and do a trial class. And things like that.
Yeah.
And I would always get our club manager or some of the staff, along with some regular members that are doing loads of classes, get them to join in, find out some feedback from the potential candidate, but then also from the people afterwards. We tend to hire more on personality than we do on qualifications, as long as they've got the qualifications we need. If someone's got great personality, they're going to fit in with our team, we would much rather have them than someone who's got 7 different qualifications,
Absolutely.
but not really.
Yeah.
The practical assessment, I would agree, is so important for the roles within the studios and the gym space and PT.
Personality is everything, isn't it? If your
Yeah,
face doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Clientele versus clientele in a club 40 minutes down the road, it can be really niche. So we would always advise, exactly as you said, as long as they meet your compliance criteria and hold that qualification that's recognised within the industry, just get them down for a practical. Because also it's part of the recruitment process. You're testing their willingness to come and be put on the spot.
And that's it, and that comes back down to that willingness to work.
Yeah. And incidentally, actually, there's actually a national trend at the moment for people hiring people with skills rather than experience. And historically, actually, we tended to look for people who've got good experience. We looked at the CV and said, okay, have they done long enough here? Have they got experience in this and whatever? We look back through the CV, and actually people are now looking at it and going, actually, I just need the skills right now. Can I afford to wait for someone who's really experienced to come along and tick all the boxes? Actually, no. I'd rather just someone who can come in, who's really enthusiastic, got the right skills and behaviours, who can deliver for me right now. If they've got those things, then we'll build on all the other stuff. And that's a general trend at the moment because there's so few candidates on the market. If you sit there and wait for people with that experience, with the experience you'd ideally like, you're probably going to end up waiting for quite a long time.
I guess that's where I was coming from. If you've got an advert or whatever, if you've got half a dozen people who've got no experience, but they've all got a level 2, you know,
We found that works better for us sometimes because they haven't learned things from other companies that we don't do. If they haven't got as much experience, the willingness to learn and change.
We talk about a job lifespan, and a job lifespan is how long someone can be in a job for before they stop delivering and stop being enthusiastic about it. So what tends to happen, not all the time, but actually if you look purely on experience, you tend to get people who are at the latter end of that job lifespan. So they've come in and been an instructor for 5 years and they want to be another instructor. Well, why do you want to do this again? Why are you moving in the first place? Why are you going to a similar role? How enthusiastic do you think they're going to be to do that? And how long do we think we're actually going to keep them for before they realise they didn't want to do this anymore? So that's important. But going back to one of the points is when you're looking at those sort of people with qualifications, that's the point where you've got to say, okay, we're going to have to ignore the CV. We're going to have to just not look at experience, which is what everyone's go-to is, first of all, have they got experience doing that? actually, does it matter? They're qualified, the bit of paper says they're qualified. I'll make the assessment whether they're actually good enough when I see them and feel what they can do. That's the approach that a lot of people, businesses are taking now because of the market as is.
Personality is, is everything, isn't it? Because, we're relatively small, and, our membership say that, it's the atmosphere that's created that attracts them to the gym. So,
and that's about your values, isn't it?
Who hasn't got your values and stands in the corner and goes one more rep, and,
People buy from people, don't they?
Yeah.
They do,
It's not necessarily the business they're buying from,
Yeah.
it's the people in there. So.
Well, some of the most rewarding stuff that we've done actually is when we've put people into roles and the client didn't like the look of it in the first place at all. They looked like a CV, I don't like the CV at all, I'm not interested in that person at all. And we said, look, they fit. From what I know about you and your business, they really fit for your business. I think you should have a chat to them, coffee chat, and then it all goes swimmingly well. That's really rewarding, and actually that's great for people who don't normally get a chance. And lots of people get rejected on CV alone, because actually most club-based recruiters who don't have huge amounts of experience in recruitment just look at the CV and they don't look beyond that, and you're rejecting good people on that basis alone. So yeah, we say be positive about how you're recruiting and how you're screening. Look for reasons to speak to people, not reasons to reject them.
Okay, good.
We get loads of people apply that haven't got any qualifications, but I love working out in the gym and I like helping people. Great. But here you said you've got 2 years experience. Yeah, I've been a member of the gym for 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. But the question would be, okay, can we use them else? If they're really enthusiastic and they love working out, can we use it front of house? Can we use them somewhere else in the business? They clearly want to do it.
And that's what we've done with weekend stuff. People who've got no qualifications.
Yeah.
People who work in the gym, get them in reception, cleaning.
Absolutely.
Start to push them through the qualifications.
Yep.
At the end of it, you've got a brilliant staff member ready to go on to an instructor or a PT role.
Yeah, totally. I mean, back in years ago when I worked in the health clubs, we had people like that. We had a guy who started as a cleaner with no qualification, and he just worked his way up, and he showed the enthusiasm and the drive, and he was put through courses and he qualified. Members loved him. Turned out to be absolutely brilliant because someone invested some time into that person when actually probably most people just wouldn't have given him a shot in the first place.